sprints out. Looking. Stops. In trouble, and he gets decked at the 30-yard line. Wow. What a hit. And that's Perrion Winfrey. Here's Mertz. In the pocket, and he gets crushed. Wow. Daxton Hill shot out of a cannon. The reverse into the hands of Presley. Presley, the wide receiver, just got lit up. J.L. Skinner laying the wood.
Welcome to the Devy IDP Grind. No Hollywood tonight. Instead, you get the dynamic duo of myself, Justice, and Brock. How you doing tonight, Brock?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just watching that intro and watching Graham Mertz get crushed. That reminded me, I watched that game. I don't know, was it Thursday night, Friday night, that Florida spring game, and man, Florida just looks. I don't even know what to say. They look terrible. I don't know if you caught it or not, but
no, I read a little bit on it, and I guess it wasn't good, or maybe their defense is really great. Is maybe the hope for the Florida faithful down there, I guess. But I mean, Mertz isn't really all that impressive, so I don't know. Richardson really bailed out that offense in a lot last year, and I mean, I don't know. Napier's not exactly known for dynamic offenses or anything either.
No, he isn't.
And that one-dimensional power running game isn't going to live in the SEC. You know, you gotta be able to do a little bit of everything, I think. So I don't know. We'll see. He's got some good recruiting classes coming in, but this might be kind of a transition year as they go to Mertz or whoever else they decide to play at quarterback and stuff. So.
I mean, personally, I didn't think it was a great hire to begin with. I thought he would kind of be in over his head. I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at their schedule, but I don't even know if they win 2 or 3 games. I mean, maybe they have 2 or 3 cupcakes that they will, but they looked really, really bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't.
I don't. Do you think? I mean, I don't know if if they only win 2 or 3 games. Do you think they're going to fire Napier after year 2? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're not a patient school, exactly. Right? And why should they be? I mean, you're in Florida, right? You're in like the mecca of college recruiting, and you should be able to be better. But I mean, some of that's the shit that was left behind for him too. So
yeah, like there's lots of things that are going on within that program that I don't feel like are necessarily like his fault, but. You know, he's going to be the one to take the blame for him. You know, like the whole Rashada thing, like I don't necessarily think he had anything to do with that, but it's still, egg on your face kind of moment, So
yeah.
Anyway, don't really have a lot of news tonight. The only thing I guess that I've seen recently that I thought might be worth talking about in terms of news is Bear Alexander, defensive tackle from Georgia, has announced that he's entering the portal. He was a 5-star recruit, is that right? He was pretty highly ranked.
Yeah. I don't know if you
last recruiting cycle.
Yeah, either high 4 or high 5, and already moving on to less competition. So
yeah, I mean, kind of. I don't know if you heard anything, but kind of what I heard was it seemed like he was kind of in line to start this year, but then I guess the sense I got was maybe he was very immature, and as a result of some of that immaturity, maybe he got demoted, and he didn't like that too much. But that's just kind of rumors, hearsay.
Well, and who knows? I mean, I don't know how high he would have been up. But I mean, Georgia's kind of a wait your turn system right now in defense, right? I mean, you go there, and I think your expectation is you don't play a whole lot as a freshman. You get some reps as a sophomore, and you shine as a junior, and you get drafted to the NFL.
And, I think he would have played for him this year.
Oh, yeah, he for sure would have, I think. I mean, they lost.
I think it would have been a fairly decent part of their defense.
Yeah.
But, I guess the rumors are either USC or Texas, I think, are going to get him. And
that's probably whoever has the most NIL money out there for him.
I think they used the word his caretaker. I don't know necessarily who that is, or what that necessarily means.
He was at the USC game.
The USC spring game.
Whatever that means. So, I don't know.
So it wouldn't be talking about USC, if that wouldn't be the first time, like in my opinion, that they've kind of tampered with a player. But I don't ever see the NCAA doing anything about it.
Nah, it's all like the Wild West right now, man. Just whatever happens, happens.
I mean, they kind of did it with I think they definitely did it with Jordan Addison last season. So, it's until someone's hands get slapped, it's just going to continue to happen and get worse probably.
Yep. Well, until they get some like strict guidelines in place, which is probably it might be too late for that now. So
right, yeah, it's like now the horse is out of the barn. It's kind of hard to put him back in the barn.
something like that.
So this week's topic, we're going to talk about a rookie draft, an IDP only rookie draft that me, myself, Brock, and Hollywood all participate in. I'm pretty new to the league. I was asked to join, like, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks before this draft happened. It's a position specific league. So you start defensive end, defensive tackles, cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers, and it's IDP only. There's no offensive players at all in the league. The scoring is also very position specific, and maybe I don't know if Brock can maybe talk a little bit more to that, but basically they're not scored the same. Like a tackle is not scored the same points for all the positions.
No, it's pretty. I mean, so me and my buddy DJ sat down. Like, I mean, this has been like, so this is I want to say 4th year of the league, and I don't know. I guess it must have been like COVID time. we sat down one day and we were just kind of shooting the shit, and we started like working together on like a defensive scoring system, and kind of came up with the one for this league. I would wager to bet that there's probably no scoring like it, right? I mean, defensive tackles, you can build a team a lot of different ways and have relevance with it. Probably with the exception of building a strong corner group would probably be the one thing that doesn't make any sense in this league. So, it's weighted. I think it helps out. I think that, you see value in what NFL players actually do as far as when they hit the box score, of course. That's they have to do that at some point in time, so it's not like a mythical PFF number that you don't know what it means necessarily. But, so when we did that, I think we came up with a pretty decent scoring system for it. So, you're not always saying that you have to take a linebacker. You're not always saying that, all you need to draft is edge rushers or whatever, right? It puts, safeties are in play, defensive tackles are in play. Petrie might have been I'm not looking at it, might have been a top 10 scoring player in this league last year based on the season he had. I'm not saying he's a top 10 player, but I mean, the guy had 150 tackles and 6 interceptions or something like that, so, so that's how we did it. And so I think it came out pretty good. And so this has been our 3rd rookie draft that we've had after the startup. We always do it before the NFL draft. Because, part of what we wanted to do in this league was have your player evaluation before landing spot taken into account, and so it's kind of a semi Devy league based on that, right? You're not really cherry picking. Oh, this guy was drafted by the Cardinals and he's going to get all the reps because they have nobody else there, so I'm going to take him. Your talent evaluation kind of plays into it somewhat, and there's some luck with guys, not really luck, but like finding guys later on that get drafted as opposed to guys that don't, because that means a lot for what this guy might do in the future. So.
Yeah, I think this thing that stood out to me the most when you asked me to join this league was defensive tackle scoring. So I'm looking at the scoring from last year. You mentioned Jalen Petrie. He was 22nd overall.
No, I was way off.
But in the top 10, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 defensive tackles in the top 10.
Yeah, I was going to say
Payne, Christian Wilkins, Quinnen Williams, and Jonathan Allen. They were all in the top. They were in the top 9.
Yeah.
So,
well, Donald was probably on a PPG basis to be in that, right? So,
Almost half the top 9 were all defensive
Yeah.
tackles.
Yeah, and it's cute, and they are. I mean, those are the guys that anchor a defense. Like if you look at good defenses, I mean, they don't show up and they don't get any credit for shit. But I mean, you build your teams in the trenches in the NFL still. So I mean, I like that about the league, but I also like the fact that you can still kind of go old school and you can, build a productive linebacker unit and do it. So it gives you a lot of options. It's not the old school way that, well, no, you just draft linebacker after linebacker for linebacker after linebacker and your defense will be good, right? You have to kind
Get
of
a couple edge guys and
yeah. I mean, you can think outside the box and go get some different players, and it can really benefit. You can do some different things and not just have to be the same old same old. So
absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what I'm not a big NFL fantasy person. It's not. I prefer not to play it like if it's by itself. I can tolerate it when it's tied to a campus Canton or a college. But what intrigued me about this league, other than it just being defense only, was the thing you mentioned about the draft being before the actual NFL draft, right? So that's a difference that I really appreciated, and I saw as a big benefit to someone like me in Hollywood, where we play college IDP, so we know a lot more about these guys than perhaps other folks that don't do. So that kind of intrigued me, and another reason why I ultimately decided to join the league. Um, the team that I took over, they weren't that great, and they really lacked defensive tackles. And so that was when I saw that and saw scoring, that was really focused of mine on this draft was defensive tackles. Um, if there was a strength of my team, it was definitely the defensive ends. I had abundance of quality defensive ends. I really had zero defensive tackles. So that was, and I had no depth at linebacker or cornerback or safety really. So I would say defensive tackle and linebacker are kind of my two main priorities when I went into this draft, and also just getting younger. So I guess we want to start with the first round here of the draft.
yeah, you did. You took on a challenge. I don't think the team was great, and I mean, I think the one thing in any leagues is kind of off the normal path, right? You have teams that aren't very well taken care of sometimes, and you jumped into it, and I think if you stick around for the long haul, you'll be fine, and it should be like I said, it's a fun league. This is outside of my original or my the campus to Canton IDP league that I have. This is my favorite league. I just love it. I think it's a blast. There's a lot of a lot of good owners in it. You mentioned Hollywood's in it with us, of course. Kyle's in it. Doc, if anybody follows I think it's the Fright Night Fantasy Football stuff is in there. Trip, is like the guru of IDP pretty much, and he's in that league. Yeah, so there's a lot of guys that kind of that are pretty well invested in fantasy football and want a league to succeed. So I think that's pretty cool about this league too. So, but yeah, I think we'll go through a couple rounds of just kind of breaking out, like talking about picks, and then I think we'll kind of be more round specific and just probably pulling out a couple things here and there, with them as we go through, since we don't need to go through all 100.
I think the other thing about this league that I don't think either one was mentioned is I don't remember what the total roster size is, but it's a ridiculous number, like 70 or 80. So there's literally you're not finding people on waivers.
Yeah, I think it's I want to say
so if you're not building through the draft, you're SOL or trading your SOL.
Yeah, I think 50 active and 20 taxi, I believe.
Something like that. So and it's only defense, right? And so it is by far I bet you there's not a deeper IDP league anywhere else.
Yeah, and you can. I mean, there'll be a couple players maybe, but like a few corners, or something like that might fall into something. But yeah, it's you're not going to win. I shouldn't say that. You'll find somebody, but yeah, you're going to have to be pretty lucky, I guess, to hit something on the waiver wire for it to
Absolutely
to benefit you. So, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if we just want to, I can just read through the first round here, and we can kind of discuss like a little bit about the picks, and then we can
sure.
Then probably you can read through the second round and discuss through a little bit. So sorry, we're not the most prepped operation tonight for various reasons. So the first pick was a team by the name of Killer Bees, which is I have no idea who that is, but pretty easy first pick. He took Will Anderson. I mean, kind of the guy that everybody's been waiting for in this IDP group. Funny thing is that I'm pretty sure Hollywood, the reason he didn't join us tonight, there's probably many reasons, which I'll get into as we go through. But, he's one of those few guys that is like, planning for the future. And he had a team that he's maybe, you want to say tanking, he's kind of tanking because he's looking to, get young and make his team better, which that's great. That happens in dynasty leagues sometimes. But Hollywood, being the giver that he is, also traded away his first round pick. And so I don't know what he got for him. I'm guessing I think it was like Shaq Leonard, and I think a bag of peanuts and basically an FU from the Killer Bees. And so he could have had that pick. But yeah, anyway, Will Anderson's pretty much a no-brainer. Going to be the first IDP off of just about anything, I think, with the weakness of this year's linebacker group. Pretty much any format, I think he's the first IDP that goes. So you could jump in if you need to, or I'll just keep going. The next pick was another edge guy that took Miles Murphy from Clemson. Another player I really like, and I think I feel fair that he's being the second edge coming off, and probably the second player too. I think if we would have had, Jalen Carter doesn't have all the flags over him, he's probably in conversation for either of those first two picks. But there's a lot of concern around him right now. So,
All right, so this draft took place literally almost a week after the combine. Is that right?
Yeah, about a week after the combine. So we had all the news kind of came out, and I don't think I'm not 100% for sure if he had kind of pled to the misdemeanor charges yet or not.
I don't think so, but I just think kind of knew.
Yeah, or if that followed. So, I mean, there was kind of a cloud around him, so I get why he fell. But you had mentioned Rev. He got Jalen Carter with the next pick, which, that might turn out to be the guy to get in this draft too, right? I think, on a talent evaluation perspective, I mean, he's up there. Him and Will Anderson are kind of the two guys, so and not just counting defense. I mean, him, Will Anderson, and Bijan are probably the three guys, if you're just looking at who's the best pure talent, regardless of position in this draft. And, it's those guys there. So next guy that went, and this is your pick, so you can give us a little insight on it since you're here, was Jack Campbell, your linebacker from the University of Iowa. You took him at 4. Had a really strong combine. I think he tested better than anybody really thought, which was nice to see. It has some nice tape, and just kind of that old school middle of the defense guy, right? I mean, he's just gonna, But so, I think, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so my strategy, before we came into this draft, I was constantly trying to trade for the number 2, number 3 pick, in order to get. My plan was I wanted Jalen Carter and Jack Campbell, and I was not successful in being able to trade for the 102 or the 103 before the draft. But literally, I'm pretty sure in between the 103 and my pick at 104, I was able to trade with the guy that took Carter, and I ended up getting Carter in that trade. So even though I didn't necessarily get the pick, I did get the player that I wanted. So I was able to secure Jalen Carter and Jack Campbell. I mean, Jack Campbell, I feel like is from a fantasy perspective the best linebacker, or from a scoring fantasy points perspective. And so, like I said, mentioned earlier, my linebackers I didn't have a lot of depth, and overall, I didn't have any youth either. And so, I was extremely pleased to walk away with this draft with Jalen Carter and Jack Campbell.
Yeah, my concern with Campbell is he kind of goes like like a Blake Martinez, right? Like he comes out and he does pretty well, but then as his team has him for a while, they realize that maybe there's some deficiency in pass coverage and some other things that they need. And 4 years down the road, he's kind of a hopping around kind of guy, right? But I think but it's good there. I mean, I think, like I said, if you get 4 years out of any player, I mean, in a draft, I think there's some value in that. Next was whoever 3rd and 0 blitz is. He took Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. Kind of a guy that I was a little bit like, tested pretty well at the combine as far as his metrics number. I think heading into last season, he probably would have been like a slam dunk number 1, but then, kind of had a so-so junior season and some deficiency showed up on tape and stuff. So a good get there, but I think he kind of fits that mold of the athletic linebacker that teams are looking for right now, so
yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be a fine NFL player. I'm not sold on his necessarily from a fantasy perspective on him, but
he's probably a guy that might not have any top 10 seasons, but it's going to have a lot of top 30 seasons, right? Yeah. Kind of thing, so he falls in there. Next was Drew Sanders out of Arkansas. I don't know why MFL keeps listing him as an edge. I mean, I know he came off the edge on 3rd downs a lot for Arkansas last year. Maybe that's where they think he's going to land. I still think he's kind of a weak side linebacker kind of thing. I don't know if I think there's some like legitimate concerns about him in pass coverage though, which maybe, leads to that. But, I think another guy that athletically tested not at all at the combine now that I checked my stuff. So I don't know what he did his pro day. I'd have to go look, but I really don't, I don't care. But he looked more than athletic enough to me, watching the film at Arkansas and made some big plays. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Leo Chanel for Wisconsin, from the year prior, I think. So we'll see if he, what it does for him, but I think he's a solid pick there.
I mean, he was the linebacker. He was LB2.
What's that?
He's LB2 for me in this linebacker class.
Yeah. Well, there might have been some concern with just the fact that he was listed as, like I said, he got listed as an edge by NFL because they obviously don't know what they're doing with positions. I like this next pick a lot. I think he kind of fell, and I was kind of surprised that, the teams ahead didn't really consider him. But Breesy from Clemson, defensive tackle there. Like you said, you mentioned the premium for defensive tackles in this league. I think that, Doc kind of had something fall into his lap there as far as a guy that's probably the number 2 defensive tackle off the board. Maybe even number 1 with some of the, rumors maybe that some teams have Jalen Carter off their board completely now. And so I think that was a good landing spot for Doc to get him there, as someone that, sounds like pretty solid. He's going to go in the first 20 picks of the draft and should be a good player for him. So next was Vitamin D, and he took Tyree Wilson. Another guy that, a top 10 pick, it looks like. A lot of people love him. I think there's some that'll say he's the best edge in this draft. Super lengthy is kind of his thing. Athletically, he hasn't really tested on anything. I don't know if his explosion necessarily always shows up on tape, but it sounds like he's going to have some really good draft capital for him, and should be a nice pick there, I think, for the Vitamin D team.
Like, I mean, I think I might have taken him as early as 105. Like, I'm not saying this will happen, but I would not be shocked if he is the best edge in this draft. And at the end of the day, ends up being the best edge in this draft. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being like a total bust either. So
yeah, I think there's some concern. Like I said, I don't, like the to me, he doesn't look as explosive as like a Murphy or an Anderson at all, right? But maybe some of that's just the fact that he doesn't have to be because he's, that much better than who he's playing against too. I don't know. So, The next is 109, and this was Hollywood again. He took Lucas Van Ness, or as NFL likes to call him, Luke Van Ness. Yeah, that's probably about right, honestly. I mean, he's probably edge 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there for it. I think I would take him before any other position left on this thing. So I think that was probably an easy pick that landed in Hollywood's lap, so he couldn't mess it up too much.
Yeah, he Hollywood commented that he wanted Jack Campbell or Tyree Wilson, so it kind of had a. I'm sure like he wasn't happy when Tyree went right in front of him.
Yeah, I think there's a little gap there between the first couple of guys that went and Van Ness. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of experience. I want to say
He's never started a game at Iowa.
Well, and I want to say something like he's only played like 800 snaps or something like that. You know, and I think if you look at like Will Anderson, Will Anderson, I want to say it was almost like 1900. And so there's that. I mean, I think there's some like, you know, holes in his games and things he needs to work on, but I think he's a really, you know, really strong prospect, and some of this is all prospect evaluation. So I think it works out for him. So next was Killer Bees were up again, and they took Brian Branch from Alabama. Either safety 1 or 2, I think, on most people's draft boards. It seems like, you know, him and Antonio Johnson are kind of the consensus. Like I said, this scoring kind of rewards safety play too. So I don't see why, you know, someone might say, oh, why are you taking a safety in the first round of a draft? But it kind of makes sense based on, you know, points are points. And, you know, he's a guy that can kind of do it all. He can play in the box. He can, you know, be that safety for you, but he's also, you know, he's gonna be on the field a lot. So I think that's a good pick, and he should have some decent draft capital to go with him. So
I think Branch, to me anyway, from a fantasy perspective, is the clear number one that I feel the safest about. Right? I think there are certainly other safeties that can finish, you know, as the top fantasy safety. But I feel like Branch is the safest of those. I guess maybe.
yeah.
Like, I mean, we'll talk about him later, but like JL Skinner, like he could be dynamite, but kind of depends on where he lands.
Yeah, Branch is going to be a good player for whoever gets him. You know,
right.
That he's safe. It seems like he's pretty well widely thought of as a first round pick, and you know, there's not a whole lot of fluctuation off of him in the draft, right? So,
yep.
Next was Kyle, the Big Dirty. He took Nolan Smith from Georgia. You know, the dude freaked out at the combine, and you know, had a good enough career at Georgia, I think, too, and he showed a lot of good things on tape. You know, I think he was probably pretty happy with that pick when he pulled that one off. You know, I think the concern for him is, you know, the
size.
The size, yeah. I mean,
he was not someone that I would have considered. I don't know. I probably would. I mean, I never would have gotten him because I probably wouldn't even consider him to like the third round or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's obviously worth more than that, but I also, you know, I think there's legitimate concerns. I think you have to go with that saying, okay, that's a, you know, a risk reward kind of thing, and he might be similar to like a Reddick, you know, who's kind of a smaller defensive end, you know, but it took him
right. How many teams and how many years?
Yeah,
he was
before he got going, you know. So hopefully,
right.
whatever
someone knew how to use him properly.
Whatever team drafts him knows what they're doing there. So, at 12, you got Cansey. Went to a team called Orange Crush. You know, he's a nice. I don't know if like if this draft is done before the combine, if he goes that high, right?
I don't know. I think so.
You think so? I mean, I think he had some freakish combine numbers, which I think have boosted him up. He's not really high on my radar. He's a smaller defensive tackle prospect. I think the lazy translation is to say he played at Pittsburgh, and
he's Aaron Donald, which
he's smaller and shorter and stuff too. But that's just, I mean, Donald's like an all-time freak. And
like, I'll tell you, for me personally, I think the combine probably cooled me a little bit more on Cansey because, like, you heard all the stuff more about his size and how his arms are short and all that kind of stuff. Because he was someone I really liked in college, right? And he was someone I targeted in our college leagues. But so I don't know. Maybe for the others it upped his game, but for me it kind of had the opposite effect.
Well, and I think you see that, right? Because there was certain metrics and stuff that he didn't really meat that you should look at. And I don't know if I would take him there. I don't think it's not the worst pick I've ever seen, and not the worst pick in this draft probably. So,
Yeah, especially given the defensive tackle scoring. So
yeah, definitely. Next was Monsters of the Midway, and he took the aforementioned Antonio Johnson. I think he's a guy that could start from day one and gets into the right scheme, and probably will start from day one because he's going to have decent draft capital. I mean, let's face it, you drafted a safety in the first or second round, you're starting him. And I think from a points perspective, he's probably going to fit into what you need there and stuff. I don't know, based on the draft board, there's a couple guys I definitely would have rather taken and stuff like that. I don't know what Monsters of the Midway's team needs were for sure, because that always plays into effect a little bit. But he's going to be one of the first 2 or 3 safeties off the board. Like I said, he's going to have decent draft capital, and I think that's going to lead right to the lineup. And if you need a guy to play, it makes sense. And I think there's a lot of speculation with players behind this too. So if you just got one at something safe, it makes sense.
I think for me, the concern with Johnson is he's pretty versatile, right? And so,
what if he fall in that free safety route?
Right? Yeah. Does he get stuck in center field? That's the concern for me.
Yeah, but you watch defenses more and more. They're not playing one guy exclusively at that, and so you might see a trend towards that. But I think they play in the box enough, or they play in I think there's still value there if he does. So, then the last pick of the first round was Will McDonald from Iowa State. Another smallish defensive end. His pro day numbers didn't match nearly what like a Nolan Smith did at the combine. So I don't know athletically, what he is, but yeah, he's very, he's got a lot of good traits about him. Had a good college career. I mean, I think he was at Iowa State for 5 years. I believe.
And that's this was Hollywood's pick. And that was his comment that he, decided to go with a proven college production guy that had some versatility.
Yeah, he does. I don't know what versatility he has. He's an edge. I mean, that's his versatility.
Yeah, I don't. He's not big enough to kick inside at all. I don't think so.
Yeah, he's 1,000% an edge guy. So that's kind of the first round of this thing here. So
the second round. So I led off the second round, as a result of that trade that I made for Jalen Carter. The big piece that I gave up in that trade was Hassan Reddick. I figured it was my team was not necessarily in a position to be winning anywhere, in the near future. So I figured I would take advantage of Reddick's big year last year and try to move him for basically additional pieces. And Jalen Carter was one of those, and this 2.1 pick was also one of those pieces. So I took Adetomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern. If you guys have paid attention to any of my work before or seen me on other podcasts where I've talked about him, my feelings are generally that, he's not going to be an edge. He's going to be a defensive tackle, especially given the position requirements that MFL uses now, where, they kind of redefine who is a defensive end and who is a defensive tackle. So, he as a defensive tackle, he was someone I thought highly of. I'm hoping that he doesn't get classified as an edge, because it doesn't nearly number one, it doesn't help my team much because I didn't really need an edge player, but he doesn't do a whole lot for me as an edge. The key thing for him is the defensive tackle eligibility. He's definitely someone that rose up, I think, in everyone's minds during the combine. And I will say it was no different for me, right? I thought he was a decent / okay player prior to prior to the combine. I think prior to the combine, he's probably, I don't know, round 3, round 4 guy maybe. But obviously with the combine, I took him here at 201. He just crushed it, right? I think the biggest issue with him is you don't always see it like in his game film. It's almost like I don't know, he chooses when to play and when to not play. So those athletic traits didn't always come through on a consistent basis. But hopefully, with the NFL, he'll be able to do that as a defensive tackle. The 2.2 pick is Noah Sewell, the linebacker from Oregon. He's not someone I'm personally high on. I was listening to another podcast today, and they were talking about Noah, and they kind of hit the nail on the head with him. If this was the 1980s, he's probably one of the top linebackers, right? Because that's what he is. He's an old school thumper. He does okay in zone coverage, but man coverage, don't ask him to do it. He's probably someone that's, without knowing his landing spot, he's probably at best a 2-down linebacker, right? And so,
well, and he's probably not even that, because I think that this day and age of the NFL, like, where does that guy even go, right? Like, I think that there's a strong possibility he's not even drafted until the 5th or 6th round. I think there's even a slight possibility he's not even drafted.
yeah, I think
he just doesn't fit the game of this day and age. For
I
most
think
teams.
The problem with him and why people are so enamored with him is his pedigree, right? He was a 5-star recruit. I don't know, probably top 5 in the nation. He has 2 brothers in the NFL, and so I think that's my own personal opinion why a lot of people have him as high as they do. For me, if I was going to take a linebacker here, there's I can think of at least 3 probably other linebackers I would take before him, or maybe probably 4. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm like 100% out on this linebacker class for the most part. So
the next to 203 was edge BJ Ojulari from LSU. He's a prospect that I think either people love him or they don't like him at all. There's not a lot of in between with him, I don't think. I don't hate him, but I'm not overly excited by him either. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Chop.
Well, no, but I think he's kind of very similar to his brother, right? Where nobody really loved him, but he's good. I think he's solid. I think he's a guy that somebody's going to get in the 2nd round somewhere that's going to fit in and probably be a decent player for a team. It didn't always show up on game day for him at LSU, but that might just be a product of what LSU's been the last couple of years too, right? So I don't know. I don't mind that pick there. I think you're getting a solid guy. I'm not saying you're getting a top 5 guy or nothing like that. I don't think he's necessarily a home run hit, but I think probably a safe pick and a smart pick for the owner that took him.
So the next pick is 204, and it's my pick again. This was really a pick more, I think, out of need. I think if I was taking best player available, I probably would have taken an edge here. I probably would have taken Derek Hall or Keon White, who might be a defensive tackle in the NFL. I think I would have taken one of them too. But I struggled with this pick between 2 players, and I ended up taking Maisie Smith, the defensive tackle from Michigan. And I was really torn between him and Keanu Benton, the defensive tackle from Wisconsin. Ultimately, I decided to take Smith. I felt like he was kind of had the higher upside, and also felt that if one of the 2 was going to drop to my next pick, it would have been Keanu. Ultimately, that didn't happen, but I think Benton probably fell further than Maisie would have. Again, I need defensive tackles. I think he could be nothing, or he could be, a phenomenal player. And I just kind of took that chance on his upside there. Hopefully, more he he doesn't have any more brain lapses or kind of yeah. I mean, that's kind of I guess I didn't think about it till now, but that's kind of the theme of my draft, right? Having Maisie and Jalen Carter, where
Yeah, yeah.
kind of wild cards a little bit, but
No, but I think they're. I mean, I don't necessarily think they're like super low floor guys. I mean, I think there's there's a floor there, but I think they both have really high upside.
yes.
As far as that, I mean, I think worst case scenario, you're getting a rotational defensive tackle that's still going to provide some value for you. So
next up was defensive end edge Byron Young from Tennessee. I don't know. He doesn't do a whole lot for me. He wasn't high up on my list.
but he blew up the combine, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that did that. He had a fairly productive senior year and an okay junior year kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think he.
Again, he's a floor guy. I don't see a whole lot of ceiling with him.
That and I just like I said, I think that I think he blew up the combine, and so with this draft being right after that, I think that made it, kind of got his name out there a lot more. So, as an edge guy, he'll probably be fine, and who knows? I mean, he looks like he's a freakish athlete. Maybe, I think there is some upside there. I don't necessarily know if I would fall into it, but I don't. There's a few guys after that I probably would have rather had than him.
Absolutely. I think for sure would have taken over.
Yeah.
So at 206, Felix Inaduke is up edge, Kansas State. I think he's got a pretty good ceiling, or he's got a lot of potential, and he has a decent floor too. I think. I'm not sure what the concerns are with him. Maybe I don't know that he tested all that well, but he didn't test bad.
Well, he did test at the combine. I think he did everything at his pro day. And he just has, I just think he has a tendency to kind of disappear and stuff. So I think, playing in the Big 12, you're not necessarily, you're not going against the powerhouse offensive lines that you see in the SEC and the Big 10 to some extent. So I think there's probably some concerns that, when he gets to the NFL, he's not going to be able to handle it. I don't think, for his size and weight, I don't know if he has like a athletic trait that necessarily jumps off the page that says, okay, this is what this guy's going to win with for it, So, but I think he can be a solid player. Like I said, I don't think he's a bad pick. I think he's probably safe, and he'll probably hit in a role. He's really productive at Kansas State for 2 years.
Yep.
But I don't know what that all necessarily means. And so, like I said, he kind of hits a lot of things, but I don't think there's anything that just stands out as a wow that sets him apart. And so, maybe he'll, fall to a team that's edge needy and he can step in right away and get reps right away and be productive with them. I think is probably the hope with him. So,
I mean, I think I'm trying to remember my own personal rankings. I think I had him number 5 for edges. This next guy was actually my number 3 edge. As 207 was Derek Hall from Auburn. I really like him. Super productive, I think, in the SEC. I think he's someone also that people either really like or really don't like. I mean, I had him as my number 3 edge behind Wilson and Anderson. And so to me, like, I'm surprised he didn't go higher. I mean, I think he's pretty good at everything, right?
Yeah, I think he tested well, and he showed some production there at at Auburn.
I think he's a little on the short side. Maybe that's kind of one knock on him, but
well, I mean, height's only relevant. I mean, I think the reach and the everything like that is comes in more to play. I mean, his arms are 34 and a half, which kind of leads you to think he's probably okay, regardless of what his height is. So I think he's No, I think that's a good pick there, and I think he's someone I'd feel.
Absolutely.
You know, I had him ahead of all three of the edges that went before him. So,
Yeah, that was a great pick. And he's probably who, if I did not need defensive tackle so bad, he's who I would have taken over Maisie Smith. This next pick is Hollywood's, and it's Keon White. I like Keon White. I guess, and it seems like a lot of NFL folks do too. I think the biggest knock on him is he's an older guy. He's an older guy in terms of age, but he's not an older guy in terms of, he's been playing the position for a long time. So he came into college as a tight end. He was actually at Old Dominion first. He played tight end his first year at Old Dominion. Then they transitioned him to defensive end, and then then ODU didn't play the next year. They didn't play the COVID season, so he sat that year out. He then transferred to Georgia Tech, where he basically sat out another year. And then this past season, he was kind of defensive end / defensive tackle for Georgia Tech. Had a really great year. He's someone I think that has a lot of potential. And I think he has a lot of untapped potential just because he hasn't played, the defensive line for very long, even though he is a guy that is on the older side. What's he going to be at the NFL? I think he's going to be, a 3-4 defensive end, which would make him a defensive tackle for MFL, which would be super valuable. And if that's the case, he should have been drafted higher. But I think there is some possibility that he'll be a 4-3 defensive end and be classified defensive end, which is, at least for this league and most other leagues, probably not as great.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like 5th-year guys or 6th-year guys or whatever he is. Wasn't he in the class of 2017?
Yeah, and I would generally agree with you. I think he gets a pass on some of that simply because he wasn't a defensive lineman the whole time, right? And 1 year 2 years didn't even play. So
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
And 1 year wasn't his fault, right? The team didn't play, so it wasn't like he was being redshirt or he wasn't good enough. The team just flat out didn't even play.
Yeah, but you go into Georgia Tech. I don't know if he got hurt that first year. I think he only played like 2 games or 4 games. Or
he didn't play
like
much
that.
at all.
And I'm sorry, but if you're an NFL player, you should be able to show up at Georgia Tech today, whether you're 16 or 23, and play from the go. So, Keon White's not a guy I touch at all.
Personally, I would, especially if he's classified as a defensive tackle. The next pick, the 209, was Henry To'oTo'o, linebacker from Alabama. Not a linebacker that I'm personally would draft. I'm not this high. There's 3-4 other guys I think I might draft before him. I don't think he's terrible. I think he's better than Sewell, but he doesn't excite me.
No, I already told you I'm out on this linebacker class. Except there's one guy I would have taken here coming up in a couple picks, but it's not To'oTo'o.
So we'll move on to the next. So these next 2 picks were linebackers, and I would have taken either one of these guys over Henry To'oTo'o or Sewell. And the first is 210 is Ivan Pace, Cincinnati, linebacker from Cincinnati, who just had a great year at Miami of Ohio, transferred to Cincinnati, and just absolutely crushed it again. I think he's, from my perspective, he's someone I would take a chance on this linebacker class. I think he in the right, with the right scheme, he can be someone that is productive in the NFL. Right opportunities.
Who are we talking? Ivan Pace?
Ivan Pace, yep.
He blew up really last year, I think. I think there's legitimate concerns, though, with his size and how that fits, right? There's not a ton of 5'10" linebackers that work, and so I think that's a concern. And where he goes. He reminds me a lot of Malcolm Rodriguez for last
That's
year.
what I was just getting ready to say, right?
Who I know had some moments, but what's the longevity in that, right? I mean, Detroit's already looking for other linebackers and stuff, so, just because he made a name and made some plays through Hard Knocks or whatever the heck it's called, doesn't necessarily mean that there's any staying power there in that kid. And, Pace could fall into a similar situation where the team's just so linebacker needy, he gets thrust in there, but will it work long term? Who knows?
So this next linebacker at 211, I think, is a discount Trenton Simpson, who might even be better. And given the discount, I would take him well before, I'd rather have him than Simpson, and that's Deion Henley from Washington State. Henley he's just an athlete, right? He started out at quarterback, I think at Nevada, then went to wide receiver maybe, and then went to safety, and then ultimately ended up at linebacker before transferring to Washington State last season, where he had a great statistical year. And so I think he's someone that fits today's NFL really well.
Yeah, I think when like you said, he's a converted safety. I mean, so I think there's some of those things that are going to translate in coverage and stuff like that. I think he's a guy that's kind of, as the whole draft process is breaking out, you've seen him kind of gaining more momentum over a lot of guys. So I think that's I think he's a good pick. I mean, another one, he was I don't know if you said it. If you did, I wasn't paying attention. I apologize. But he was a wide receiver prior, right?
He was a quarterback first,
or
and
quarterback.
he was receiver. Yeah.
Okay, so he's played some positions, and obviously Justice gives you a curve if you played a lot of positions. So,
I just think he's an athlete, right? So I mean,
he's a good athlete, though. Yeah,
right. To me, that's what that tells you. He's a good athlete.
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete. I think he's probably got some instincts there. So, I like Henley a lot more than the two linebackers. Heck, even the three linebackers picked before him. So.
This next pick is another, in my opinion, tweener. I think he will end up a defensive tackle given his size at the 212, and that's Tuli Tuipulotu from USC. A lot of people say he's an edge, but I think he's too big to be just an edge. I see him. I think he's going to be a 3-4 defensive end, and so he's going to be classified as a defensive tackle for MFL purposes. I really like him as a defensive tackle. If he's classified as an edge, I'm not so much in on him.
Well,
he had a great year for USC.
Yeah, and I mean, his scheme fit's probably going to be the question stuff, and he led Division I football in sacks, right?
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, he had 12, 14, something.
I'm pretty
like
sure he did. So I think kind of had a breakout junior season and capitalizing off that. I think he'll get decent enough draft capital. I think it's an okay. I just don't know where he fits, right? 'Cause I don't know if he's athletic enough to be a true edge guy, and I don't know, but again, you're 26 picks in or whatever to an IDP only draft. So, I mean, I think he's worth whatever he is. I mean, I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I think someone's going to get him, and I think he can play well, and he's going to be solid, and he'll, a guy that might never be, top 20 guy, but is going to be a top 40 guy or something like that, right? So,
I mean, if you're in a defensive tackle required league, and he gets defensive tackle eligibility, he's someone I would be in on. Yeah. If he stays as a edge or end, I probably could care less about him. The next is safety Jordan Battle at the 213, 27th overall. Jordan Battle from Alabama. I'm not overly excited about him, as there are safeties that went later in this draft I would rather have than Jordan Battle.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think you're into the point here. To me, there's some really interesting edges still left, and so I don't touch a safety with a 10-foot pole at that moment.
Yeah, especially one that's not like a top. To me, he's not for sure top 3, which I guess he was the 3rd one drafted, right?
Yeah, but I don't even know. I don't know if he's top 10, honestly.
Right.
So
So this next guy is a favorite of mine, but there's lots of question marks with him. At the 214 was linebacker DeMarvion Overshown from Texas. He's another guy that I think he has a lot of potential. He's very athletic. He started off as a safety, played linebacker, so I think he can fit what the NFL wants from linebackers today. The biggest concern with him, I think, is his desire or motor. Like he doesn't. Sometimes he just doesn't. Like he's just going through the motions, I guess, right? Like he doesn't have the effort, the hunt all the time that you want to see out of a linebacker prospect. But from an athletic standpoint, right, he's up there.
well,
Um,
yeah, I think I like Overshawn. I think he's a classic kind of weak side linebacker that the NFL kind of needs, right? Like right now, I think he can drop into coverage. He can do these things. I mean, 2 years ago at Texas, I think they kind of played him as the middle guy. Last year, they made Jalen Ford their middle guy, and just kind of let him be kind of that guy that can, is he your weak side linebacker? I think he lined up as your nickel. He can line up as your nickel guy. I think he's versatile and he's a good. I think NFL teams are going to like him just because I think he could do a lot of things,
yep.
And could be, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, for a defense, right? Where you
Yeah.
kind of you put him out there and he could, like I said, he could line up all over the place. Maybe a poor man's Isaiah Simmons kind of thing, and even poor man's compared to him athletically as well too.
Right.
So, but
Yep.
I think he'll get decent draft capital. I think he'll be a guy that I think teams will find a good use for, based on their evaluation of him. So,
And the last pick in the 2nd round was another linebacker who I feel like he went this high mostly because of the combine, and that's Owen Papo from Auburn. He never really did much from a production standpoint at Auburn, but he kind of the combine really boosted him up.
yeah, he was. I mean, he was okay at Auburn, I think. But yeah, I mean, 4.39 940. He benched 29 times, had 35.5-inch vertical. I mean, just a lot of kind of freak out moments there that you didn't necessarily see. Again, though, he's another shorter side linebacker, right? 5'11" or 6 foot or whatever he is. That how I don't know how well that transitions. I guess you don't. It doesn't, to be honest. So
Yeah.
we'll just leave it like that. So,
So moving to the 3rd, there's any ones you want to specifically talk about here?
so Foskey, however you say his name.
Yep. He fell further than he probably should have.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, I think that's kind of especially at that point, that's like
So he was at the 303, 32nd overall.
Yeah, that's just such a safe pick. I think. I think he's a guy that's.
I think he's a great floor guy. He might not have a high ceiling, but he has a pretty good floor.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a great pick there. I like Skinner. I think Skinner's a badass.
Skinner at 311. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I just think
he fell further than he should have.
And I think he's got potential to be the best safety in this draft.
Absolutely, especially from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I like the guy I got, Dexter from Florida, and I think he's kind of he's very high risk, high risk, low reward kind of guy, right? Like I don't necessarily, or high risk, high reward, I should say. Like I don't necessarily. He could be the best, the best defensive tackle in this class, or he could be worth absolutely nothing. But I think at that point for me, he was worth it just because, if he puts it together. I mean, he had moments at Florida where it's like, man, this guy just gets it. And, will he always hit that? I don't know. So I like that pick there. And I like the Benton pick too.
That's what I was going to say, the Benton pick. So this is kind of where I mean, overall, I feel like I did better. I did great in that trade, but I gave up my 3rd round pick in that trade, and that would have been Benton, and he
Yeah.
made it. He made it to what would have been my 3rd round pick, and he almost made it to my 4th round pick, but he ended
Well,
up
and I
going at
think that
313 there.
I think the concern with Benton is that he's, if he's like Vita Vey, for example, in this league here, he has some value, but it's so hit and miss, right? He's just playing that straight A gap, and he might have those weeks where he has, 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and gets you 15 or 16 points, but then he's gonna have a lot of weeks where he just does nothing for you. That's kind of what Benton is, right? So
Yeah,
picks I don't like in this round.
the cornerback.
Yeah, I mean that's early for a corner.
Christian
I think.
Gonzalez.
Granted,
If I was going to take a cornerback, it wouldn't have been Gonzalez.
yeah, and then Diabate, terrible. I think. I mean, terrible college player, and didn't get a combine invite. And then I don't like the Carl Brooks pick either. I just MAC player, no combine invite. I mean, there's a lot of correlation to like guys that go to the combine and who get drafted and who don't. I just think those guys are both early reaches at this point. So
there is one more that I did like, and that was Dorian Williams. I might have been a little early for him, but I think he's someone that
Williams had a really good career at Tulane
that
too.
has some potential.
Yeah,
for a linebacker. Moving on to round 4. So this is where the cornerback that I would have taken first went, and that was Devin Witherspoon. He went at the 4.2.
yeah.
I don't know that I personally would have taken a cornerback this early, but if I was, he would have been the one I would take. You probably, in my opinion, you got the steal of the draft here with Jair Brown.
Yeah, I like Brown. I think he's
steal of this round for sure.
Yeah. Well, I took two safeties. I took Jamie Robinson and Jair Brown back to back. I just like them both. I mean, I think they both kind of fit what the NFL wants in this day and age of safety, where, I think they're more box guys, the guys that can play that free safety angle, but I think they can do it if they have to.
And you got, I don't remember what we traded, but you got both of these picks for me.
Yeah, I don't know what we did for sure. I'd have to go back and
I think well, I knew I wasn't going to get Benton, so then I didn't really care.
Yeah.
So I
probably,
took I don't really remember what we traded, but anyway.
Yeah.
Anyone else you liked in this?
I like Cam Jones. I like him as a player. I think he's I don't know I think he's better than a lot of linebackers. I think he's gonna be a better NFL player than a lot of these guys are, and I don't think he's given enough credit in this draft. Winters.
I took Servachier Dennis.
I don't mind him either.
I think he was the best linebacker that was left.
Yeah, I think Dylan Horton was a good pick at this point at edge. I think Kyle took him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I've always liked Brandon Joseph. I was really disappointed how he tested and stuff. And
he didn't have that great of a year at Notre Dame this past year.
Yeah, he really struggled when he jumped over from there. So I don't know if some of that was skiing or anything like that.
Winters, I'm not a fan of his. Right? I'm not a fan at all.
No, I mean he had such a great game in that BCS game, man. Right? BCS. What the fuck? How old am I? You know what I'm talking about. But it's such great...
but like just to plug my tackle production model that I made that's on campus to Canton. If you look at that for last year, he's like one of the worst linebackers.
Yeah, I just but he had such a great game, so I get it. What are we sitting here, 56 picks in or whatever? So I don't think that's necessarily a bad pick. Robert Beal was just a waste of a pick.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
He was a waste of a player at Georgia, and then someone took him at 401. So
we won't say who that was.
No, it was Hollywood.
So moving to the 5th round, I do like Hollywood's 5th round pick, Shaka Hayward. He was someone I was looking at when I took Servachier Dennis. I was hoping he would make it to my next pick, and obviously that didn't happen. I don't know that he's necessarily great at anything, but I think he's decent pretty much everything, and so I think he could find a role in the NFL.
Yeah, he had a solid career at Duke for sure. So, yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting into the weeds here a little bit now, right, in this draft. So,
I like the Martin Mapu.
Yeah,
I think, but
to
is
me,
he going to be a linebacker or safety? Right. I mean, he is a
he-
small school guy, and he didn't get a combine invite, but
and he's small too. I mean, I
yeah,
think he's 6'2", like 212 or something like that. So I don't know what he is. I mean, I know he blew up at the Senior Bowl and really made a name for himself. And again, you're in is it too early in the 5th round of a draft like this? I don't know.
no, because he's someone that's who when I took Dennis, I was considering Mapu and Hayward, and I was hoping one of the would fall next. So.
Yeah. I like my Isaiah McGuire pick in this round. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. I think he's a kind of an underappreciated edge in this draft here coming up. So,
other 5th round picks. I like the Moro Ojomo pick. He went right.
Was a good pick, yeah.
He went right in front of me, and that's who I was going to take. So I definitely got sniped there. I ended up taking Isaiah Land, the edge from Florida A&M. And then I also took Ventrell Miller, linebacker from Florida. Land, I think he can be a contributor, right? I don't know that he necessarily has a high ceiling or anything, but I think he can have a decent floor and be a contributor in the NFL. Miller, linebackers that went to the at this point in the draft, linebackers that went to the combine were pretty thin. And I just kind of felt like he was the best of what was left.
Yeah.
It looks like I had 3 back, and I took Nesta Jade Silvera, who I think in a defensive tackle required league, he can be a sneaky pick at the end of drafts. I think he can provide you some points from a defensive tackle perspective. Let's see, round 6. Probably my favorite 2 picks are, one of them is my own, Yaya Diaby from Louisville. I think he's got a lot of potential, and then I like the Isaiah Moore pick, the linebacker from NC State.
I like Daniel Scott. I don't know who took him.
Was that you, or was it Hollywood?
It wasn't me, but I think
it was Hollywood.
He had some good film at California, and then he checked a lot of boxes based on his combine performance. So I think he was good on that. But yeah, you're kind of in the weeds of it,
I also had another 6th round pick. I took Charlie Thomas, the linebacker from Georgia Tech. He's another one of those kind of smaller guys, right? He was a safety, and now he's a linebacker. He's someone I think that can find a role in the NFL. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire or anything, but at pick 83 in an IDP only draft, right? I felt like he was someone that had some value there, and can stick around and have a role in the NFL for a number of years. I think the biggest concern with him is the size, right? He does everything good. He doesn't do anything elite, but his size is kind of the biggest concern, I think, with him.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see, round 7. Your pick of Jason Taylor, I really like. The safety from actually, probably both your picks this round are probably the 2 I like the best. And that's Habakkuk Baldonado, the edge from Pittsburgh, and Jason Taylor, safety from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, we're really into the weeds now. I actually just traded Taylor today in this league to somebody, but I like the Ronnie Hickman pick. I know he's been hurt. I've been interested.
Man, I'm not a Ronnie Hickman fan at all, man. I think dude's trash.
No, I like him. I think he kind of fits that box safety stuff that that the NFL wants. So I like that pick here.
I mean, my picks in this round were all cornerbacks. So it was Cam Smith, Deontay Banks, and Emmanuel Forbes. I mean, I like them all, but they're cornerbacks. So
they're corners. So who knows?
The only cornerback that I really was excited about for this draft was Witherspoon. But I mean, I like those three guys, right? But they're cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Let's go to the 8th round.
I'm still trying to figure out who Zeke Vandenberg is. Vandenberg.
Who?
I don't know. He went 8-14. Zeke Vandenberg. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't even know who the hell that guy is.
Yeah. Tavius Robinson, I think, is a good pick there. I mean, he had couple decent. I think he had 2 decent years in the SEC, and I don't, like I said, probably a safe guy that's going to be at least a good rotational defensive end for a team in the NFL.
I mean, other than my own picks, Darius Rush, the cornerback, I think that was a good pick this late in the draft.
Yeah.
My 2 picks, I took 2 safeties that were not at the combine. They did have productive college years, and they're from smaller schools. And these are probably I just feel like if they can get drafted, they could secure an in the box role in the NFL. And that was Quindell Johnson from Memphis and Nico Bolden from Kent State, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of like, to me, they were dart throws, and I felt if they were able to get drafted that they could end up being very well, good darts. So,
yeah.
Let's see, round 9.
Probably not anything that stands off the board in round 9, actually.
I mean, I don't hate my MJ Anderson pick, but I'm not overly excited by it either.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tyrus Wheat that you took, I think at this point in the draft, that was a good pick. Around the end of the draft, let's see. I took 2 cornerbacks again, but the one guy I think that I do like, or I say there's 2 guys. If I wasn't taking corner, I would have taken the guy that you took later in the 10th. The edge from Rice. At this late draft, I think he's worth a shot. He was he was combine. I think he did well at the combine. So late in the draft pick, and then Darius Turner, safety from Duke. I think if he drafted, he can have a potential in the box role. He was that moved to FCS, I believe, or he went to I don't know 5th year.
Yeah, he could. I also like. Thomas and Hodges. I think
that's one of the cornerbacks.
Yeah, because I think he's going to find a decent fit, like as one of that kind of coveted nickel corner roles in the NFL.
Yeah, I took him and for the same reason, right? I feel they can both fill that role, and so corner was a need for my team. We're both still sitting there. I kind of a fan points perspective out the most that were still available. And that's kind of in the draft. 131 players draft, right? Just kind of show you how deep this league is. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, the last 3 rounds, there's gonna be a ton of guys that don't even get drafted. So, on that, so that pretty much wraps her up, I think.
Yeah, I think. So I think next week we're gonna our next episode, whether it's next week or not, is we're going to talk about a campus to Campton draft, right? Supplemental draft.
I believe so.
That in your league that recently took place. It was auction draft, offense and IDP. So we're going to talk about some of the IDP and what it costs to get those players coming up next week. So
yep, and we'll probably have some spring football camp news.
Right, spring news, maybe some more transfer portal stuff, right? Because the portal just opened up. I think it opened up Saturday, right? But but the compliance people weren't in the office on Saturday, so those names probably won't. Those names should start filtering in first today and the early part of this week, and also you might start hearing about destinations of guys too. So
yeah, I'm sure they'll start figuring that stuff out. So it's about. I guess that's a wrap.
Yeah. So, listen, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like and subscribe on YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to DM any of us on Twitter. You can find me at justice_2318. You can find Hollywood at Hollywood Titan, and you can find Brock at Choppin_KC. And also at Devy IDP Grind. So hope you all have a great week and peace out.